The seventh night after the war ended did not bring peace. It brought fear so heavy it clung to every world like smoke. Because no one believed the fire was truly gone, not after what humanity had done. Across the galaxy, starships hovered in the dark with their lights dimmed and their weapons armed. Entire fleets waiting in silence, terrified of a threat that was no longer visible but somehow felt closer than ever. The alien empires called it the 6 days, a quiet phrase spoken with shaking voices, a phrase that carried the memory of burning armadas and broken capitals, a phrase that tasted like ash because it reminded them of how quickly the universe had changed. And in council halls that once mocked Earth, holoscreens now replayed the same haunting footage, human warships rising out of deep space like shadows with engines glowing cold blue, moving with a patience that felt more like judgment than anger. On 1,000 alien worlds, parents tried to comfort their children with soft lies, whispering that the humans were far away, that the council would protect them. But fear lived behind their eyes, fear that their leaders could no longer hide. They had seen the recordings too. They had watched the moment the human fleet crossed the outer rim, silent and controlled, as if humanity had finally stopped asking for peace and started showing the galaxy what came after being ignored for too long. Every empire felt the truth pressing down on them, a truth they had refused to accept for centuries, that Earth had never been weak, only patient in a way no one respected until that patience finally snapped. And somewhere beyond the rim, in the cold stretch of uncharted space, the human fleet drifted without broadcasting a single word. No threats, no demands, just presence, as if humanity wanted the galaxy to sit with the silence they had created, a silence that felt louder than any weapon they had unleashed. The war was over, but the fear was not, because no empire could understand the limits of human restraint. No empire knew what line still remained unbroken, or how close they had come to crossing it again. And in that trembling quiet, one message appeared on every alien channel, a signal traced back to Earth, a signal with no voice attached, only a single line of text blinking like a heartbeat in the dark. We are watching. The message spread through the galaxy like a cold wind, slipping into war rooms, council chambers, and dim-lit outposts on the edge of nowhere, and every species felt the same chill crawl down their spine. We are watching. 2 simple words, yet they carried the weight of every broken treaty, every ignored warning, every human life lost while the Galactic Council turned away. Leaders who once laughed at Earth now sat frozen at their consoles, staring at the blinking message as if it was a countdown they could not stop. No one dared respond. No one dared provoke a species that had shattered 3 empires in 6 days with a calm, focused fury that felt almost surgical. In the council chamber, usually loud, crowded, full of pride, only whispers moved through the air, thin and nervous, drifting like dust in a room that felt suddenly too small. Some demanded negotiations, others called for surrender, and a few reckless voices begged for retaliation. But even they spoke with trembling hands, knowing that retaliation was nothing but a slow death. The screen on the central podium replayed those haunting images again, human warships drifting through fire-lit debris with quiet precision, their formation unbroken, their message unspoken yet unmistakable. We gave you years to listen. You chose silence. Far from the council, in lonely frontier posts and mining colonies built on fear and superstition, people stared into the night sky, wondering if a human ship was watching them at that very moment. The uncertainty became its own kind of terror, a shadow that followed them into sleep, waking them with a memory of blue engine light cutting through the dark. And yet, hidden beneath the fear was another emotion no empire wanted to admit, a feeling that tasted like guilt, the realization that the humans had not struck first. The galaxy had simply pushed them too far. Meanwhile, deep in uncharted space, the human fleet held position in absolute silence. No movement, no broadcasts, just an unbroken wall of metal and resolve, as if they were taking the galaxy's pulse in the quiet after the storm. On the bridge of one massive warship, a soft alarm blinked, a faint energy signature approaching from a remote direction. The crew turned toward the captain with steady eyes, waiting for a command. But the captain's expression changed as the reading sharpened, the light on his console shifting from blue to a bright, urgent red. It wasn't an enemy signal. It was a distress call, and it was coming from inside human territory. The distress signal pulsed through the bridge like a heartbeat, soft at first, then sharper, carrying a quiet urgency that made every officer lift their head. Human territory. That alone froze the air, because no one was supposed to be out there. Not this far, not after the evacuation orders, not after the 6 days had redrawn every border in fire. The captain stepped closer to the console, his eyes narrowing as the audio fragment played again, a broken whisper buried under static, a voice strained with fear and something else, something that sounded like disbelief. No one recognized the signature, No colony matched its frequency, yet the encryption, what little remained, was unmistakably human. A low murmur drifted across the bridge, nervous and uncertain, the kind of sound that only appears when soldiers realize the threat might not be outside, but inside their own shadow. The captain raised a hand and the room fell silent, the crew watching him with steady, controlled breath as he replayed the fragment. This time, the message cracked through the speakers with a clarity that sent a shiver down every spine. "Is anyone there? Please, they're coming back." Then only static, thick and cold, swallowing the voice whole. The captain exchanged a long, troubled glance with his second-in-command, both of them thinking the same thing. No empire would dare trespass after what humanity just unleashed. Whatever this was, it wasn't a foreign invasion. It was something else, something unexpected, something the galaxy wasn't supposed to be capable of anymore. The map projected above the hollow table flickered to life and displayed the coordinates. A lonely point of light hidden in the folds of space where no human settlement should exist. Yet the signal had been repeated again and again, 4 hours, from the same spot, never shifting, never fading. Orders moved across the bridge like quiet waves, calm yet heavy with tension. Engines warmed, shields brightened, and the human fleet broke its perfect stillness for the first time since the war ended, turning toward the unknown echo within their own territory. The void ahead felt colder than usual, darker, as if something waited there with patience as deep as space itself. As the flagship changed course, the distress call played once more, but this time, it wasn't alone. Another voice slipped through the static, low, trembling, almost impossible to hear. "It's not them. It's something worse." The captain's breath caught as the signal abruptly cut off, replaced by a single sharp tone no human had heard in centuries. A tone used only for extinction-level threats. The extinction-level tone echoed through the bridge like a blade dragged across metal. Thin, sharp, unforgettable. Every officer went still, their faces tightening with a kind of fear only veterans understood, because humanity had locked that code away generations ago, back when Earth still believed in impossible nightmares. The captain felt the weight of it settle into his chest, cold and heavy, as if the past had reached through the dark and placed its hand on his heart. He tried to breathe steadily, but the room felt smaller now, the shadows heavier, the quiet between pulses too fragile to trust. The crew watched him, not with panic, but with something deeper. Faith mixed with dread, the understanding that they might be stepping back into a kind of danger the galaxy had forgotten. The captain activated the analysis screen, his voice soft but steady, the tone of a man facing something he wished he never had to remember. The signal was ancient, older than first contact, older than the Council itself, part of a protocol Earth created when it first left home and realized the universe was far larger, far darker, than anyone expected. The second-in-command swallowed hard, her voice cracking slightly as she spoke. "Sir, if that code is real, then whatever sent it survived outside human space." Her words trembled, not from fear alone, but from shock, from the realization that a human life had endured in a place where no life should exist. The captain's jaw tightened as the holomap zoomed closer to the coordinates. What appeared wasn't a colony, or a ship, or any structure they recognized. It was a faint, flickering distortion in space, like a scar struggling to heal, pulsing with a rhythm that matched the distress call. As the flagship pushed deeper into the dark, the surrounding stars seemed to pull away, dimming slightly, as if the void wanted to hide what lay ahead. The distress signal played again, weaker this time, as if the speaker was fading. "Humanity! If you hear this, don't come alone." The voice cracked mid-sentence, fear swallowing the last words, fear so raw it twisted the air on the bridge and drained every trace of warmth from the room. The captain stepped forward, eyes locked on the growing distortion, his voice low, filled with a calm that felt like a promise. "Prepare the fleet." But before he could issue the next command, the distortion split open with a violent flash, sending a wave of energy rolling across their sensors. From inside that tear came a single object. A human escape pod drifting silently toward them. The escape pod drifted toward the flagship like a ghost, turning slowly in the cold dark, its hull scorched and torn as if it had clawed its way out of something far larger, far more violent. No beacon flashed, no life signs broadcast, only the faint reflection of starlight crawling across its damaged surface. The bridge held its breath as the pod rotated enough to reveal the faded marking on its side. An old Earth emblem, one not used since humanity's first deep space missions. A symbol from an era when humans still believed they were alone in the universe. Seeing it now felt like looking at a message from the dead. The captain felt a cold wave sweep through him, not fear, but something deeper, a quiet grief mixed with a rising dread. Someone was inside that pod. Someone who had sent the extinction-level signal. Someone who had survived in a place no human should have survived. And whatever they had seen was enough to make their voice break with terror. The crew moved with sharp precision as the pod was pulled into the hangar, the sound of magnetic clamps locking echoing through the ship like a heartbeat no one was ready to hear. In the observation chamber, the captain and his officers watched as the pod's door was forced open by automated arms. A rush of cold air spilled out, carrying the scent of old metal and something else. Something faintly burnt, as if the pod had passed through fire that didn't burn the way fire should. A figure slumped inside, wrapped in a tattered human flight suit, their helmet cracked, their breathing shallow but present. The med team rushed forward, lifting the survivor gently, but the moment they laid the figure onto the stretcher, a trembling hand shot out and grabbed the captain's sleeve with desperate strength. The survivor's visor shattered completely, revealing hollow eyes filled with pain and something worse, recognition. Their voice escaped in a rasp, thin, shaking, soaked in fear that pierced the room like a blade. "You shouldn't have come. It followed me. It's already here." Alarms exploded across the ship before anyone could respond, red lights flooding the corridors, the deck rumbling under their feet as sensors spiked. A massive energy surge appeared behind the fleet, larger than any warship, larger than anything humanity had ever recorded. The distortion in space tore open again, this time not as a wound, but as a doorway, and something began to step through. The void split open behind the human fleet like a great wound, stretching wider and wider until even the stars seemed to recoil from its light. The distortion pulsed with a cold, unnatural rhythm, and from its center came a shape that did not belong to any empire, any world, any history the galaxy had ever known. It moved with a slow, deliberate grace, as if tasting the darkness around it, a towering silhouette built of shifting metal and living shadow, its surface flickering with echoes of places it had consumed. The fleet held formation, shields rising, engines burning bright, but a hush still settled across every ship, a silence born not from fear, but from something far stronger, human resolve. On the flagship's bridge, the captain stood tall, the wounded survivor beside him whispering in a trembling voice, "It followed me through the fractures. It feeds on dying systems. You can't let it reach another world." The captain placed a steady hand on their shoulder, a silent promise that no threat, no matter how monstrous, would pass through humanity without facing the full weight of their will. A message flashed across every ship in the fleet, a single command spoken with calm fire, for Earth. For every world that trusted us. The alien construct surged forward as if sensing defiance, its tendrils of dark energy stretching toward the nearest cruiser, warping light as they moved. But before it could strike, the human fleet roared to life, engines flaring like newborn stars, warships moving with precision forged from centuries of pain and patience. The first barrage lit the void in brilliant white, the shockwave shaking even the flagship as the darkness screamed back, pulling the energy into itself, twisting it, reshaping it. Yet humanity did not falter. Wave after wave, strike after strike, the fleet pushed closer, engines burning, hulls singing, every ship carrying the memory of lost colonies, broken treaties, and the 6 days that had changed everything. The construct collapsed inward, shrinking under the relentless assault, until at last its core flickered, cracked, and shattered in a blaze of bright, cleansing light. The darkness folded in on itself, the tear in space sealing shut with a final trembling sigh, leaving only quiet and drifting embers behind. The survivor, eyes glistening, whispered through the still air, "You saved them, all of them." The captain looked out at the empty void, his voice soft yet echoing with pride. "No one sleeps in fear tonight." And across 1,000 worlds, the galaxy finally understood. Humanity had not snapped. Humanity had awakened. The light from the destroyed entity faded slowly, drifting through the void like dying stardust, but the silence it left behind did not feel like victory. It felt heavier, as if something unseen was holding its breath beyond the edges of perception. On the flagship's bridge, the crew watched the sealed space like wary guardians, their relief muted by a quiet tension settling into the air. The survivor lay on a medical cot near the captain's station, breathing steadier now, but their eyes remained fixed on the darkness where the creature had fallen, as though expecting something else to follow. The captain approached them gently, the glow of distant stars reflecting off his face, calm but deeply troubled. The survivor's voice cracked as they finally spoke, each word slow and heavy. "That thing, it wasn't alone." The room stiffened instantly, every officer turning with a jolt as if the temperature had dropped. The captain knelt beside them, careful, steady, giving them space to breathe. "What did you see out there?" The survivors' hands trembled, not with fear of death, but with fear of memory, their eyes unfocused as if replaying endless dark corridors between fractured stars. "There were openings," they whispered, "tears in space. And behind each one, shadows watching. They never moved. They never attacked. They just waited." That word, waited, rippled across the bridge like a cold wind. The tactical officer brought up sensor logs, but no readings appeared, no traces, no anomalies, as if the creature had erased its own existence the moment it died. And yet the survivors shook their head in panic, insisting, "It marked me. That's why it let me escape. It wanted me to lead it to you." The crew's expressions tightened, the weight of that realization settling into their bones, the idea that humanity's greatest strike, the 6 days, might have drawn something far older, far hungrier, out of the quiet parts of the universe. The captain stood slowly, feeling the shift deep in his chest, the kind of shift that changes the direction of history. He ordered long-range scans, his voice calm but filled with an undercurrent of urgency. "If something else is hiding out there, we will find it before it finds us." The fleet spread its sensors like a vast metal web across the stars, reaching into the void where the creature had come from. For a moment, nothing answered. Then every screen on the bridge flickered, just once, like a heartbeat. A single symbol appeared. Not alien, not unknown. A human symbol. From a ship lost 200 years ago. The symbol lingered on every screen, glowing faintly in the dim light of the bridge, a quiet reminder of a name the galaxy had buried long ago. It belonged to the Artemis, a deep space exploration vessel lost 2 centuries earlier. A ghost ship spoken of only in whispers among old human sailors. No wreckage was ever found, no distress call ever reached Earth, only a single final log that ended mid-sentence, followed by silence that lasted generations. Now its emblem pulsed like a heartbeat across the flagship's displays, steady, patient, unmistakably human, and impossibly alive. The crew stared at it with a mix of awe and dread, their breath tight in their chests. The survivor pushed themselves upright on their cot, trembling as recognition washed over their face. "That's the ship," they whispered, voice cracking. "It was there, beyond the fractures. I saw its hull drifting in the dark." The captain felt the weight of those words settle into him, a deep ache between disbelief and sorrow. The Artemis had gone missing before humanity had even joined the Galactic Council, back when humans still mapped the stars with hope instead of caution, when they believed exploration carried no cost. Now that lost optimism felt like a wound. The captain's second-in-command stepped closer, her voice soft but strained. "If the Artemis is tied to those creatures, then whatever happened to it started long before the 6 days." A chill moved through the room, subtle but unmistakable, as if the shadows along the walls leaned in to listen. The captain studied the symbol again, feeling a strange pull in his chest, an echo of old stories about the early explorers, brave souls who ventured so far into the void that even light couldn't keep up with them. He leaned over the console, his voice steady yet laden with emotion. "Send a probe. Trace the signal's origin." The communications officer hesitated, hands hovering above the controls. "Sir, what if the signal's a lure?" The captain didn't look away from the glowing emblem, the weight of responsibility settling deeper in his eyes. "Then we learn who is holding the line between us and whatever waits out there." The probe launched in a burst of pale blue light, shooting toward the coordinates tied to the symbol. The bridge fell silent, every heartbeat syncing with the steady rhythmic pulse of the Artemis badge on the screens. Then the probe's camera flickered online, shaky but clear enough to reveal a massive shape drifting in the void. A human ship, still intact, still powered, and facing something colossal just beyond the shadows. The probe's camera steadied, and the bridge fell into a stunned, breathless silence. There, drifting in the cold dark like a relic that refused to die, was the Artemis. Its hull was scarred but whole, its engines dim but alive, glowing with the soft, aching light of a ship that had fought far longer than any record had ever shown. But it wasn't the ship alone that froze the room. It was the monstrous shape looming behind it, a colossal silhouette made of shifting void, as if space itself had risen to swallow the ancient vessel whole. Tendrils of starless matter curled around the edges of the camera feed, reaching, pulling, testing the Artemis like a predator savoring the last heartbeat of its prey. The captain's jaw clenched, his breath tight with a mix of awe and fury. "It's shielding the ship," he whispered, barely aware he'd spoken, because the truth was undeniable. The Artemis wasn't being consumed. It was resisting. Every flicker of its surviving engines pushed the creature back, each pulse of its failing shields creating ripples of bright defiance in the dark. The survivor on the cot stared in disbelief, tears pooling in their eyes as they whispered, "It fought for 200 years, alone." The horror of it settled into every heart on the bridge. 2 centuries. 1 ship. Still standing. The captain turned toward his crew, fire building behind his eyes, the kind that only humanity could carry after endless loss. "Bring the fleet forward," he ordered, his voice steady, powerful, alive with something deeper than anger, honor. "No human ship dies alone. Not then. Not now." Engines ignited across the formation, the human fleet surging into the dark with a roar that seemed to echo through space itself. A wall of steel and will racing toward the doomed vessel and the monstrous mass that hunted it. The creature reacted instantly, tearing its attention from the Artemis and unfurling itself toward the fleet, its sheer size blotting out entire constellations. Energy crackled along its surface like lightning trapped inside a nightmare. It lunged with a soundless blast, ripping through the void with speed no living thing should possess. The flagship shields lit up in a blinding flash, the hull trembling under the first strike, alarm screaming as console sparked. Still the captain stood firm, his voice slicing through the chaos. "Target the core of the distortion. Hold nothing back." The fleet unleashed everything at once, a storm of brilliant fire carving the darkness open, only for the illumination to reveal something horrifying behind the creature. Not 1, not 2, but hundreds of identical void-born shapes waking up in the shadows. For a heartbeat, the galaxy seemed to stop breathing. Hundreds of void-born giants rose from the darkness, their bodies shimmering like torn pieces of night, each one awakening with a silent hunger that felt older than stars. Yet in that impossible moment, when any empire would have broken, the human fleet did not flinch. Engines roared, shields flared, and every ship leaned forward as if pulled by the same fierce truth. No matter how deep the darkness ran, humanity would not face it with fear. They had endured too much, lost too much, and grown far too strong to bend now. The captain stood on the flagship's bridge, watching the wave of shadows advance, and for the first time since the 6 days, his heart felt steady. The Artemis drifted behind him on the screens, battered yet defiant, as if whispering across 2 centuries that courage never dies. The survivor gripped the railing at his side, their voice soft but firm. "If we fall, every world falls." The captain nodded, a small, solemn smile touching his face. "Then we stand. All of us." With a single command, the fleet unleashed a final, unified strike, a brilliant storm of light that tore across the void like the birth of a new sun. Human warships surged forward in perfect formation, their engines blazing blue-white, their weapons singing through the dark. Each explosion carved a piece of shadow into nothingness, each blast pushing the monsters farther back as the void itself trembled under the force of their fury. And through the chaos, the Artemis stirred, its ancient engines flaring with one last breath of power, its lights glowing like the heartbeat of a forgotten generation returning to the fight. The flagship and the Artemis aligned side by side, their combined fire locking onto the largest creature's core. For one final, shattering moment, time held still, the void-born giants shrieking silently as the human fleet delivered a strike that split the darkness open, tearing the distortion apart from within. Light flooded the battlefield, bright and endless, washing over the ships like a wave of warmth. And then, silence. The void settled. The monsters were gone. Space held its breath as the last fragments of shadow faded like dust in sunrise. The survivor wept softly. The crew stood suspended between awe and relief. And the captain whispered to the quiet stars, "If the universe calls us monsters, let it. We will be the monsters that guard the light." Across 1,000 worlds, the galaxy listened, and for the first time, it trusted humanity.